Welcome to the Ham Sandwich, a rather unique and off-the-cuff show about amateur radio. My name is Greg. I have a call sign, amateur radio call sign of OH2FFY, and I'm located in Helsinki, Finland. And I also have a co-host for this show. Over to you, Steve.
Hi, my name is Steve. I live here in the United States in the Midwest in Omaha, Nebraska. My call sign is KD0PXX.
Well, that's is it Omaha? Is that the place famous for the potatoes? Is that Idaho?
That's Idaho. It's
what's Omaha famous for?
Oh, we used to have huge livestock yards and stuff, and there's a number of different things. We have a lot of different businesses. Kellogg's. We do cereal processing, and there's a bunch of different businesses in the Midwest.
Kellogg's cornflakes and stuff.
Yeah. Actually, they make Pop-Tarts here.
Pop-Tarts. I've never had them before. I don't think they're very popular outside of America.
Probably not. It's okay.
Anyway, so what are we doing here today, Steve?
Well, we're having just kind of a get-together, and the idea here, this is Greg's idea, is to get together.
No, it's not. I disavow all knowledge of this whole project.
Wow, that was quick. Okay, well, this was somebody's fault then, who shall remain nameless. And basically, we want to get together and talk about amateur radio topics, and hopefully you'll find some of these interesting. And the idea is that it isn't just geared toward amateur radio. The idea, at least I believe, is that anybody can walk away from the show with something. That's the idea. You know, don't think you have to be an amateur radio. You can be someone that's, would like to be an amateur radio. You can be somebody interested in electronics or a hobbyist or those types of things. So it's not really geared exactly toward any one group. It's ham-ish. That didn't come out right, but it's what we're going to say. And that's the general idea. We've been kind of kicking this around. Greg talked about this idea about a year ago, actually, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it's been quite some time in the pipeline coming, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been bubbling quite a bit on the back burner. But
yeah, and sometimes at times we've spoken about it, and then it's cooled off again, and spoken about it, and it's cooled off again. But hopefully, this is going to be something which many people will like to watch and they'll enjoy, and as you say, get something out of it. And one of the formats of this show is that it's going to be a lot of smaller topics rolled into one show, so it's not just the same endless thing rolling on and on and on. It's which can get quite boring and stale very fast. So we're going to be covering many different things over the length of each show. So Steve, to get us rolling, what's been happening in your shack? What's been going on your workbench recently?
Well, on my workbench lately, I got a hold of a national receiver. It's a communications receiver, and it covers pretty much broadcast and HF, but it actually also goes up into the 50 megahertz range, which is a teeny bit unusual, and that's an NC 173. And I got that about 6 months ago at a amateur flea market and brought it home, and I kind of just put it off to the side. It's kind of a winter project. During the summer here, I kind of gather up projects for the winter. And it's kind of an interesting receiver. It was built after the war. It was built in about 1947, and at the time, with the matching speaker, was about $190. It's pretty good size. It's considered a boat anchor. For those of you that are non-hams, boat anchors are big, heavy pieces of equipment. And I was thinking about that last night. It's getting close to about 70 years old. So my plan is to kind of refurb it and get it going and use it around my shack. It's kind of a nostalgia piece, but I thought it'd be fun to play with. And I think I paid approximately $70 for it. That didn't count the bill from the medical place for the hernia I got lifting it.
Right, this is a vacuum tube radio, isn't it?
Yeah, I neglected to tell you. Yeah, this has, I believe, 13 vacuum tubes in it, and it's pretty well sealed up. And there's a photo. There's a couple photos there. One is of the face and the other is of the inside. It's pretty well sealed up. It's pretty RF tight. What's kind of nice about some of the older equipment is it's heavily shielded and heavily built, so it's something you can work with, and maybe it's a little more mechanical than electrical. But it's going to be a fun project. I'm really excited to hear how it's going to perform and stuff. It'll be a fun project. We're looking forward to it. Is
this radio in any relation to the national HRO very wide band receiver that had the plug-in modules? Is there any relation to that, or is it a different radio altogether?
Exactly the same company. National built a number of different receivers. They have quite a few different ones. A lot of them in their line are kind of the same radio, but one radio is more general coverage, and one radio that's similar is more amateur or ham geared. They also they sold a number of parts, and I believe that's how they got their start, was selling radio parts. And they've got some really nice stuff. There's a lot of their pieces still flying around if you do a little digging. And I think it's going to be a pretty nice catch. It's got a few cosmetic issues, a little rusting on the surface, but you know, I hope I look that good when I'm 70 years old.
Yeah, well, when's that? Like next year or something?
Yes, it is, and it'll be its 70th birthday. So I don't have the official matching speaker. It had another speaker. I don't know if it got lost or carried away by wolverines or something, but it'll be fun. It's going to be a fun machine.
Yeah, I've seen some of the is it HRO 60? I think that's what they called it. One with the plug-in coil boxes. I've seen quite a few of those for sale recently on eBay and other ham radio classifieds, but a lot of them don't come with. They only have like maybe one or two coil packs, tuned circuit packs, and they can be very expensive to replace if you don't have a full set. Normally that radio, you'd buy it and buy the options or get the options to suit the bands that you wanted to listen to, but many of now have disappeared, and so sometimes you get the radio either doesn't have any band packs in it all, or maybe just one or two. And so when you want to try and get all the whole coverage, all these different blocks for the different bands, it can be quite expensive if you try and buy it that way.
Yeah, that's one of the bad things about older equipment, especially something that's over 50 years old. It may have had some accessories that got separated or, you know, sold off or traded off or stuff. So finding somebody that has a kind of a vintage piece that's in good running order is really a challenge nowadays. And one of the bad things is, you know, there are a lot of online places that sell this stuff, but the shipping is really expensive, and it's probably even more so for you know, out of the country, or over in Finland where you live. You know, it sounds like your shipping is really high over there. So it can be
very expensive to bring things in from other countries, especially from outside of the EU, because of the way the import taxes work here. Not only is the product's price used to calculate how much tax I have to pay when I bring something in, but also the shipping costs as well. So, you know, if I buy a radio that's $500 and it's got another $500 worth of shipping on it, or $400 worth of shipping, say it's a big radio, it could easily cost that much from the United States. You know, I'm looking at 30% tax on $1,000. So now that $1,000 radio, which costs $500, say in America, is now going to be $1,300 or more for me over here by the time it arrives in my shack here. So, you know, it's really something that I don't like doing. But
yeah.
So I try and limit most of my purchases from within the EU. And a lot of my stuff is coming at the moment from Germany or the United Kingdom, where I don't have to pay tax on these places. But it's something that can catch you out at times, is import taxes.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really enjoy around here, is there seems to be an unending supply of goodies, and really it's a pretty short trip to go to around here anyways, is a short trip to go to a ham flea market or fest or an auction or, you know, any of those sources. So to be really honest, I'm quite spoiled. But yeah, it sounds like a bit of a challenge. You have to really make sure, I suppose you have to really make sure you pick carefully what you want and spend your dollars wisely.
Yes, exactly. If you're paying that much and it ends up, you know, being that you've been scammed or something, it's it's a lot of money to lose, and definitely the hams and radio hobbyists in America really have, it's like paradise over there compared to many other places. The UK is also really good for secondhand stuff, but really they're not in the United States. All you guys over there, you really have it easy compared to the rest of us.
Yeah, I really do appreciate my situation. And it's actually, to be really honest, it's actually dropped off quite a bit in the past 10, 15 years, but it's still not really super hard to find something. Well, what have you got going on your workbench? We talked about my workbench.
Yeah, I've been working on this this spot of trouble that I bought a few weeks ago, this Sangean ATS 803 clone.
Okay.
To many shortwave listeners, this radio looks very, very familiar. It's available under many different names. It was sold under many different names. And this radio was sold as being not working, but it actually had some partial functionality. And the FM reception is very, very good, but the shortwave reception was very, very poor. And after some little bit of searching around, I found out that the front end FET transistor was blown. So I replaced that, and hoping that that was the end of all my problems. And by the way, the little FET, he's right there. So I was hoping that that would solve all my problems, but unfortunately my problems have just started, and that's because this radio has other faults as well. And I don't know if these faults occurred at the same time that this FET was damaged. I don't know if it had a really strong spike come through the antenna lead, or if it's just a symptom of old age. I've been chasing around the circuit and comparing it to the very, very poor service manual that I have. And actually, the service manual that I have is for the realistic DX440, which is the same as the Sangean ATS 803A, which is not exactly the same as this radio, but it has very, very many similarities. The ATS 803A was a newer derivative of this, so it does share many of the same parts of the circuit, exactly part for part. But there are some parts of the circuit which are very different. And it's in these very different parts that I suspect that I have some of my problems, which is really difficult to work out because I have a very small amount of data to go on. So I've been having to actually try and chase through the schematic to try and see the way that things work in this radio. In particular, the way that it's switching through, how it switches bands. And I'm suspecting, and this is still early stages yet, I'm suspecting that it's not switching properly from when it goes into the shortwave bands, and some of the parts of the circuit are either not getting full voltage, or some parts are not getting, they're out of spec as far as voltage is concerned. And so they're not providing the amplifying stages in the RF sections, and the IF sections are not running as good as they should. This radio runs on 9 volts DC. Has some D-size cells that go in it, but it has a DC to DC converter which ups that voltage to, I'm suspecting, 12 volts or 13.5 volts, somewhere around that. And it's that voltage that runs most of the radio, this 13 volts or roughly. And I did a test on the rail, and I'm measuring about 11.25 volts coming out of this DC to DC converter. So I'm suspecting that it may the voltage coming out of the DC to DC converter might be so low that it's preventing these switching stages from working properly. That's my theory. Of course, I've essentially got no data on what, I've got no information about what the voltage rails are in this radio at all. So it's very difficult to actually determine what is working right and what is not. So this is going to be a bit of a slow process, I expect. but in time I should be able to nut it through and work it out. I've done a alignment of it, and I was hoping that it was just out of alignment, because it just had very weak shortwave reception for no real reason. But the alignment didn't really do much. It did pick up a little bit, but not. I'm not seeing this something that I'm looking for. I'm not really seeing it yet. So I'm suspecting that it is perhaps a voltage supply problem, but it's something that's going to have to be looked at probably over the next couple of weeks to see if I can get this radio going. You got any ideas, Steve?
Well, that's one of the bad things is when you get a kind of an older piece is the manufacturers sometimes they just don't keep the documentation around, or they don't make it available. There's always the the trick I use here in the shop is sometimes I'll get a hold of something that needs repair and there's no documentation and no nothing. And sometimes you can get a piece that's another a similar unit that's damaged in another way. Say somebody damaged it cosmetically. You could kind of cheat and bolt two units together and kind of Frankenstein something back together, or maybe use a working one that's badly damaged cosmetically. Maybe you could use it as a reference to compare and see if your voltages are right. Those are some tricks I use from time to time. It's a bit of a pickle. You see something that looks really kind of cool or fun to play with, and you get it home, and then you get your heart stepped on when you find out that there's no service information available, and it's really the death knell of a lot of pieces. It can be a bit of a problem. There's always the theory too, you're not going to make it any worse unless it's some really valuable piece, but you can always just tough it out and kind of start guessing around, making educated guesses.
That's right. That's what I'm going to have to do. It really would be so easy if I had another one of these that I could compare voltages to. It would totally eliminate so much, so many, doubts. I've got so many doubts over so many different sections of this radio, and you really need to set the decision. Yes, this section is working right. This section is working right, and then work your way through until you find the faulty section. But when so many sections, there's doubts about how well it's working, then you're really into a real gray area. So it is nice to have a functioning set, and I've done that as well in the past, is compare voltages or waveforms from a known good sample to check to see if what sections are working right. But yes, it's the thing a lot of times with these Chinese radios. You're going to see a lot more of it now. Less and less service information available for them, which ultimately will probably mean that they're going to be scrapped a lot earlier than really what they should be. So that's the story. Yeah. Hopefully I can get that one going. I haven't looked at it in the last couple of days. Sometimes I need to have a bit of a break from these things before I go crazy. But yeah, I should be able to work it out at some time.
No, those are another potential resource would be, are there some forums where people are piddling with those, or like Yahoo? Sometimes they have very specific, like product specific groups on Yahoo. Do they have anything? Have you looked there?
Yeah, there is a DX440 group and essentially an ATS-803A group, and many of the people, because it's essentially the same radio, float around between the two. But there's very little information out there about the ATS-803, and I'm actually very lucky to even have found a schematic. I've only found online only one source of a schematic, and so the ATS-803, there's a lot more information about that. Sorry, the 803A, but the standard 803, really, it's slim pickings.
It can be a bit of a bother. I don't know. I'm trying to think of some other things you can do. The other things you can do is kind of the reverse of what I do sometimes is, well, this works, and try and kind of mentally chop the thing up into sections, and narrow it down.
Yeah.
Concentrate on those. It sounds like quite a bit of it works, though. You said it tunes, and it did you say it worked on AM also, the broadcast band?
Yeah, it does almost everything, but not very well. It You know, I've listened to Radio Australia from here with the external antenna, and it's working quite well, but it's just not as good as what you expect it to be. And even on the AM broadcast band with the external antenna, it works really well. I was listening to some stations from the UK, which is a couple of thousand kilometers away, at night time, and it was working quite well, but not as good as what you really need it to be. And of course, the internal aerials are really quite ineffective. So I think it does everything, but just the gain isn't there. It's still something missing.
Just a quick question: Are you sure that that it really is broke? It just isn't. That's as good as the set ever was.
Well, I've had one of these in the past, an
Okay.
803A, and I wasn't very impressed with it then. But you know, surely it can't be this bad. It is considerably down from what I expected to be. It's I think there's still some issue. I'm still looking for something.
Okie dokie. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That can be a bit of a bump. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we should move on to today's news stories, and I've found some interesting tidbits of news on the various ham radio forums. And maybe you might find them interesting as well. And one of these ones was from a newspaper site called theregister.co.uk. And it says on that site, how to stop a coronal mass ejection ending civilization as we know it. Well, many people are worried about the end of the world, and you know, all these solar things happening, you know, worries a lot of people. But this is what this news article said. Nobody's quite forgotten that a really big solar event can upset kit even as crude as a telegraph. So the US military is recruiting radio hams to help test its contingency plans. The exercise will happen between November 8 and November 10, American time, when operators will be asked to practice what to do before and after the sun belches plasma and an electromagnetic field into space after a major coronal mass ejection. The Military Auxiliary Radio System, which is MARS, is looking to the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, ARIS, and Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, RACES groups. America's National Association for Amateur Radio, the ARRL, says the exercise will focus on developing the interface with the greater amateur radio community. The exercise will simulate a radio blackout and infrastructure damage, starting with 3 hours of silence, after which stations will start coming back on air, as would be the case if such an event happened for real, demanding information as soon as they could talk. The event will also let operators discuss what they can do to protect their radio kit ahead of a severe CME. CMEs, which is a coronal mass ejection, are common, but since Earth is small and space is big, most don't cause us any concern. However, the DoD, which is the Department of Defense, says if Earth was in the path of a big enough CME, the effects could range from damage or destruction of satellites to disruption of terrestrial telecommunications and electricity infrastructure. The plasma released by the sun in the CME heads our way at between 100 and 3,000 kilometers a second. So that's very interesting that amateur radio operators are going to participate in an event like this. From the southgatearc.org website, D-Star parachute mobile QSOs with US jumper prove popular in Japan. On October 17, ham skydiver Mark Meltzer, age 66, had an optimistic long-shot QSO sked with hams in Japan, hoping to work them on 28.425 kilohertz with a 5-watt SSB signal. Poor propagation prevailed, and Meltzer's 10-meter contacts from aloft were limited to line-of-sight stations in California. Still wanting parachute mobile QSOs, Japanese hams Shu Chiba JA3GQJ, that's a mouthful, and Greg Cook Juliet Oscar 3 SLK, traded emails with Mark at his drop zone in Byron, California, and walked him through the programming of his long-dormant ICOM IC91AD D-Star HT. On his last jump of the day, operating from 12,000 feet under an open canopy, Mark was able to contact a number of Japanese hams using the WW6BAY repeater in California and the Juliet Romeo 3 Victor Hotel repeater in Japan. The website fbnews.jp has an enthusiastic article about this event. Buoyed by the excitement and support of hams in Japan, D-Star parachute mobile jumps are definitely in Mark's future jump plans. There's the website parachutemobile.com, which you can look at and find out more information about Mark and his fellow ham jumper teammates, Michael Gregg, KF6WRW, and Rob Fenn, Kilo Charlie 6 Tango Yankee Delta, for more vertical de-expeditions. Something from the UK now, and from the Southgate news website again, Ofcom license revocation. And it says there that it's understood about 10,000 amateur radio licenses in the UK, with the first batch set to be revoked by Ofcom, Ofcom being their telecommunications authority, similar to the FCC in the United States. Prior to the introduction of the lifetime license in December 2006, licenses had expired if not renewed annually. After 2006, Ofcom were still able to cancel lifetime licenses if requested by the holder, but it appears a process was not in place to enable them to revoke an amateur license. If Ofcom wishes to revoke a wireless telegraphy license, which is like a ham radio license, it must follow these steps. Notify the licensee of the reasons for which the purpose to revoke the license. Specify a period in which the licensee may make representations. Decide whether or not to revoke the license within 1 month of the end of that period, and notify the holder of its decision within a week of making it. The first batch of licenses will be revoked, comprising of amateur radio licenses, which were due to be revalidated between September 2012 and January 2013, both months being inclusive. Ofcom will be using the last known postal address held on file for correspondence with the holder. So I guess the motto of that story, if you're a UK ham, you've got to make sure that your license is always kept up to date on the Ofcom website, or else you might lose it.
Yeah.
So back over to you, Steve.
That would be a bit of a shock, wouldn't it? It's kind of interesting because they're shifting from kind of a paper-based system over to more and more web stuff, and you kind of keep up or lose it. It's really interesting.
Exactly right. Yes. There was some complaints on some forums that that hams were not notified that their licenses were even coming up for expiry. So it's something that you really have to be keeping an eye on, maybe mark it on your calendar to make sure that you don't miss the date. They said, I also saw somewhere that even though that article said it's meant to be done every year, the actual, what's written on the Ofcom website is that it has to be done, it can be done at any time, but if it's not done within a 5-year period, at the end of the 5 years, that's the end of it. So they're recommending that everybody do it every year, but it's really actually a 5-year. You have to log on to the Ofcom website to revalidate your details, make sure that your details are all correct, maybe your home address, that sort of thing. Otherwise, they'll kick you off. And I guess that's how they can, handle people that have left the hobby or maybe have become silent key, to get rid of those unused licenses and maybe free up the call sign for someone else.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good idea. I'm sure there's going to be some folks that are going to be unhappy about it, but it sounds like maybe, what, 10 minutes, a 10-minute process just to kind of verify.
The most is, I think it's fairly easy. I didn't look at the Ofcom website, but, I'm sure it's all a pretty easy process.
I don't know, that There's a lot of places doing that because, you know, just the operating overhead of the old systems, it's just eating people alive. It costs a lot, and this, you know, it puts some of the, I don't know if I want to use the word burden, but it puts some of the burden back on the person owning the license just to keep up. If you're not interested in it anymore and you just kind of forget about it, then I guess away you go.
Exactly. Well, that's about all that we've got time for in this, our first episode of the Ham Sandwich, Steve. We've covered everything that we wanted to do, and time's up. Time has really gone really, really fast.
Yep, it just flew by. I knew it would. That's okay. So we're going to entertain topics from the users, or are you going to put our email? Are we going to tempt fate and put our email addresses out there for people to contact us?
For sure. If anybody has some significant vulgar hate mail, they're more than welcome to send them to Steve. But if you'd like to email me, my email is oh2ffy@ymail.com. And Steve, what's your email for those haters?
Mine was my call. It's kd0pxx@arrl.net.
It doesn't get much easier than that, doesn't it? So hopefully the viewers can send us some comments. Maybe you'd like to see this sort of thing continue ongoing. Really, the sky is the limit. There's plenty of plans that we can put into place, but we really need to have the support. If you want it, if you don't want it, tell us it's crap, and we're out of here. So that's about all. You've got a YouTube channel, I believe, Steve.
Yes, like Greg does, I have a YouTube channel. Mine is the Time Spiders, and it's the bulk of it is older radios. It's electromechanical, mechanical, and electronic. It's kind of a mixed bag of nuts. You never really know what you're going to find there. But the past probably 6 months to a year, it's mostly been older radios. And it's, you know, kind of what I find out there and what I do to get it going. And then there's usually a little demonstration, and then you never see it again, which might be good. What about your channel?
I like older radios because it's not something that I deal with very often, and I like to see the variety of what other hams do, especially in their shack. So I do like your videos, especially when you're working on tube technology that I really have I've got no experience in it at all. I'm a newbie with tubes. So I really do like those sorts of videos.
But your channel is kind of interesting. You have a lot of interesting topics. Usually yours are more targeted at specific items. Yes,
I have the YouTube channel, which I'm promoting right here, which is Ham Shortwave Radio. That's right. And yeah, I try and cover. It's mostly orientated towards new people coming into the amateur radio hobby. A lot of antenna stuff, a lot of shortwave stuff, very, very simple repairs, this sort of stuff, to get people a bit more interested and sort of get them to know what amateur radio is about before maybe they actually get into it. Remember, amateur radio is not just about talking to some guy down the road, you know, with your little handy talkie on the local repeater. There's so much more to amateur radio than that. That's really just a microscopic part of the hobby. So that's what I do on ham and shortwave radio.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good deal. I know you've got quite a number of videos, and I know I enjoy quite a few of them. You've got quite a substantial subscriber base. You want to lend me a few of those people, or?
What's that, sorry?
Lend me a few. You want to give a few subscribers to me, or?
Yeah, I think that we're going to be sharing a few. I'll be posting this video up on my channel, and hopefully my subscribers will be able to enjoy this video, and also they'll go over and visit your channel as well and support you there as well. So hopefully that, you know, my subscribers will help boost this new venture, and hopefully we're hoping that this new venture will take off in its own direction and still leave both of our original YouTube channels. Well, that's about all that I've really got time for today, Steve. Any last comments before we pull the plug on this?
No, I think we covered everything we wanted to cover. You know, like Greg said, the original channels there are no plans for them to go away. Probably what I'll do is make a short video on my channel to redirect people over to this video. But that Greg's kind of right on the nut there. We're hoping that this takes off in its own direction and that people like it. So if you get a chance, let us know what you think. It'd be very helpful.
Exactly, yes. Hit us with the emails, the private messages. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. That's all for now. Thanks a lot for watching the ham sandwich, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. The plan is to do this once or twice a month, more often maybe if you like it. Okay, so thanks a lot, Steve. Thanks for joining me today, and hope to see you again sometime soon.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Greg. Have a good day.
Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.